Hello everyone, welcome to a new list video, and in this one we're gonna get the worst out of the way and we're gonna talk about the 10 worst albums of 2024. These are the 10 albums that sucked the most in my opinion, and there were some pretty bad ones this year, I might say. So at first, before we get into the 10 worst, we have 5 dishonorable mentions, starting at 15 with Camila Cabello with the album CXOXO. I'm obviously not opposed to any artist going for a completely different style and approach, but the new Camila Cabello album feels devoid of personality, and it's just her trying to copy the success and aesthetics of Charli XCX with Brad. And it would be one thing if the results were fine, but the blatant stealing of styles and aesthetics also indicate a lack of understanding what has made hyperpop and this more futuristic approach of pop work. The production is awful and the autotune effects are just obnoxious, a failed attempt on going with the trends. Then I have to mention the new Lil Uzi Vert album Eternal Take 2. There doesn't really seem to be any connection between this and the first Eternal Take album, which is by far my favorite Lil Uzi work. The connection is just the title. It feels like they wanted to create a buzz with a sequel, and it just fails miserably. Some of the most effortless and poorly produced tracks in their career, really bland trap and pop rap with hideous vocal deliveries. Really disappointing. Then it's the new Taylor Swift album, The Tortured Poets Department. Alongside the attempts on making the album dominate the charts by releasing multiple versions of the same shit, it's astonishing how bland and uninteresting this new Taylor Swift album actually is, containing some of the worst and most questionable lyrics she's ever put out, and the production is just so quiet and unengaging. It's just background music with nothing to keep you hooked. I've never really been a fan of the new direction of Taylor Swift with the folk and singer-songwriter elements, but this has to be her weakest attempt so far. Really disappointing. Next up is Post Malone with F1 Trillion. I don't say that this is necessarily the worst country album to come out this year. I mean, there might be some conservative country album that is completely embarrassing, but I really don't want to get into a country rabbit hole. However, considering that this is made from one of the most popular current artists, the direction of just making a full-on country album couldn't be worse, filled with slop, and it's just a really boring album. And finally, at the dishonorable mentions is French Montana with Mac and Cheese 5. I am not familiar with the other Mac and Cheese series, but I really don't know who asked for 5 of those. And it seems like the reception has not been the best. It feels like he just wanted to make another one because there's the name behind it. The mixtape is just slop after slop. 1 hour and 21 tracks, lots of filler, and just a completely forgettable trap and pop rap project that has little to no redeeming qualities. Now, at number 10, we start with Loom by Imagine Dragons. Didn't even think it was possible, but this is actually the worst Imagine Dragons album. One side of me hoped that we will see some development after Mercury. It had a few different ideas, not necessarily good, but it seemed like there was potential for them to do something slightly different. But Loom contains some of the most obnoxious tracks they've ever put out, containing all of the cliches that has made Imagine Dragons unbearable to sit through the past couple of years, with those loud and grating arena pop rock sounds. Absolutely shocking. Number 9 is this edition of Jelly Prime's The Lo-Fi Nightcore edition of Crimes. I can't think of a more useless album to come out this year than a far worse version of one of the better first Crimes albums. Grimes musically has been in a tragic downwards trajectory over the last couple years, and bizarre choices like this make it extremely apparent. It's more of this artificial and lifeless approach on quote-unquote futuristic music that sounds absolutely robotic. She basically just ruined one of her better works from back in the day that shows her lack of creativity in the more recent outputs. It's really disappointing considering the potential we got with some of the first works, but it's just gone downhill. Number 8 is once again Sastur with Disharmonic Variations. It's really astonishing how one of the most well-known and best names in the depressive black metal scene stoops down this low with every new release. If the previous two releases were not enough, Disharmonic Variations takes the spot for one of the worst black metal releases I can think of, if you can even call it that. The dark folk elements are once again really sloppy and all over the place. There's nothing cohesive between all of the sounds coming together. On one hand, it feels like an average folk or dungeon synth project that just throws some drum machine for some reason at random places, and let me tell you, this is some of the most shockingly bad drum machine I've ever heard, like especially when it tries to have blast beats or dual triggers, it's hilariously bad. How he just keeps getting worse and worse is beyond my comprehension. At number 7 is G-Eazy with Freak Show. Prior to this, I haven't heard any other album from G-Eazy. I was just aware of the artist and I was wondering how bad this could actually be. And in terms of a bad album, I was not disappointed. This is not just the case of your average white rapper. He tries to be so many things at the same time and fails miserably to all of them. From pop to rock to rap, this sounds like the worst elements of the 1975, but it's somehow even worse, with more emphasis on blunt R&B and hip-hop. I mean, at the end of the day, it is kinda funny, but for the most part, it's just boring and not worth it going through the pain to listen to it. Number 6, as to be expected, is One of One by Ghana. Who would have guessed another Ghana album that lands on the worst of the year? This might actually be the most boring work he's put out so far, which really says a lot. Ghana is one of those rappers that has been consistently crap in my opinion. I really can't see how anyone could enjoy his music. It's not like there's anything that stands out for how bad it is. It's just so by the numbers average trap beats with not a single ounce of power, energy, and this is something that also lacks in Ghana's overall delivery. Unnecessarily long and bloated, 20 tracks, almost an hour of material, and all of it just flows as if nothing of substance is really happening. It just passes by, making this another stinker in Ghana's overall career, a rapper that in my opinion has consistently managed to be one of the most forgettable in the whole industry. At number 5 is Tom MacDonald and Nova Rockefeller with Wild Ones. To no one's surprise, Tom MacDonald still makes really crap albums, and once again it's a full-on collaboration with his girlfriend. After a long series of cash grabs with stupid, controversial political hip-hop singles, Tom MacDonald has reached this point of fame where he feels like he can do whatever and make a more personal album for those very few who would actually care about anything like this. It's an extremely boring and uninspiring rap album with pop, country and rock elements. There's a lot of patriotism and in a few cases it does go to some cringe political takes. For the most part, it's a Canadian talking about the American country lifestyle, something that he has done before and in no way does it develop in its concept compared to back then. The self-titled track starts things off with some of the most obnoxious, cringe-inducing autotune I've heard from these two artists. Thankfully, the rest of the album doesn't have vocal effects like this, but it's not like it's any better. Simply avoid, it's bloated and uninteresting. At number 4, it's gonna be Blueface with Free Blueface. I mean, yeah, it's Blueface. I don't expect any type of quality project from him, but still, absolutely astonishing how little to no effort there is to this. There are so many times where he's offbeat, he's just mumbling stuff, he's not even trying. And same with the beats as well, there's almost nothing going on to them, poorly mixed and just really short without any sense of pacing or structure. Keep in mind that this is only 16 minutes long, and it does feel like this is the amount of effort that was put for this to be out as well. Such a lazy and unengaging project, definitely one of the most boring and low effort short albums to come out this year. Even in its short runtime, it's still painful to sit through. Number 3 is the mixtape of Ian, Valedictorian. It's mostly just a meme project. Of course it's not meant to be taken seriously, but even For such an unserious project, there's so little to it in terms of any sort of creativity, wittiness. This might be the most low-effort album I can think of out of this year. The whole "I'm just a white boy trying to rap" thing gets kinda tiring, and it's just a really cheap copy out of the trends we see in recent rap music that in my opinion are not even worth it to try and copy, especially if there's nothing else to bring to the table in terms of lyricism, some catchy hooks, or any sort of solid delivery. It just sounds like an imitation of Playboi Carti at times, the beats feel unfinished, and the production leaves a lot to be desired. Undoubtedly one of the most pointless and uninteresting hip-hop mixtapes I can think of, with its main saving grace being that it's really short. Number 2 is gonna be Jax with the album Dear Joe. Formerly known as an American Idol contestant, Jax made a big name on her musical career, but mostly for the wrong reasons. After a series of obnoxiously painful singles, the debut album couldn't really be any worse. And out of those 20 tracks, having a series of cringe, uninspired songs is one thing, but it's with a huge amount of interludes where the album has its biggest nosedive. It's not just that we're talking about simple interludes that add nothing to the album. These are some of the worst and most childish and immature interludes I've heard in an album. On one hand, it's really apparent that certain parts of the album were completely rushed, case in point the Hawk 2 interlude, whose title changed to this right after the meme blew up, and then you have Neurospice that is downright offensive, and others with titles like Adam Sandler, Epstein Didn't Kill Himself, and Barbara Your Husband Is Gay, that are some of the poorest attempts on novelty in music I can really think of. Unfunny, frustrating, and just a huge mess piled together. This feels like it's just designed to make a piss out of people, in which, good job I guess, but it also needs to have a sense of sarcasm, wittiness, and self-awareness, which this album is lacking, and it comes off of like such poor taste. And at number 1, with the worst album of the year, is in my opinion, Popular Monster by Falling in Reverse. Originally meant to be released years ago as an EP, this full-length album is basically done by a convicted criminal who also decides to use his low-res mugshot as the album cover. The downfall of Ronnie Radke as a person also reflects on his abhorrent music that tries to be so many different things, but at the end of the day we get a really messy alternative metal album with zero redeeming qualities, whether it is with some bizarre over-the-top production choices or with the vocals who range from cringe-inducing obnoxious choruses to Eminem-style verses. It would be one thing if the album didn't revolve around Ronnie being a piece of shit, but it's really all about that. The entire album reflects of self-braggadocious crap with a massive victim complex and a typical corny fuck the haters attitude. Ironically though, the follow-up with the reception of this album shows a person who cannot handle the heat, threatening lawsuits to people criticizing his actions and putting on his live shows videos of TikTok from his haters. Absolutely embarrassing behavior, and this excuse of an album only adds salt to the wound. The comeback no one asked for, no one wanted, from a person that should better be kept behind bars. And these are for me the 10 worst albums out of 2024. What were in your opinion the worst releases out of this year? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.